Now an empty plot of land will soon be a mixed-income housing development in Hampton's Phoebus neighborhood. A developer is building 162 apartments at South Mallory and Libby Streets. 13 News Now reporter Nico Clemens explains what it could mean for the neighborhood.
If you've ever noticed this huge empty plot of land along Mallory Street in Hampton, it won't be empty for long. A new development is coming to Phoebus, and some of it is affordable housing. The developer, the Whitmore Company, is building 162 apartments at the corner of South Mallory and Libby Streets.
In this particular area, I think that is quite enough.
Margot Young-Wiggins owns Creations by Margot Lynn in Phoebus.
Business has been very good for us here in Phoebus.
She's noticed in the 6 years she's been in Phoebus, traffic has gotten worse. But she says there could be a plus with a new development.
The other part that may be good is that they would be walking customers. So they would walk into the stores, and that would help the economy.
So 80% of the apartments would be at market rate. The remaining 20% would be affordable housing. The Virginia Housing Development Authority is financing the project, a project that's part of the VHDA Workforce Housing Program, which creates greater access to quality affordable housing options and encourages a mix of incomes. Young-Wiggins says ultimately more in Phoebus could be a good thing.
More in terms of businesses, making sure that there is a good variety of different types of businesses. For example, maybe a coffee shop.